Um, Hello, everyone. I hoped for a much smaller audience because it's lunchtime and everybody should be going. But however, we'll try to do something. I was preparing actually for the Gulp talk. I agreed with them, and then with this should be workshop. However, I tried to merge two things into one, and well, let's try to see how it works. Myself, obviously, I'm quite long in this business. I'm trying to do various things in IT business, but lately I landed a school that is called Koder, and its purpose is to develop the developers. This will be in the slides later. And the thing actually is that while everyone is talking about the React, I will not talk about the React. So some half may leave, I will turn around. Also, there will be no artificial intelligence. We don't have the natural ones, so I'll talk about the artificial. And surprisingly, there will be some talk about Drupal, as everyone is talking about the JavaScript, and let's talk something about Drupal. Now, here's the thing. Unlike the other presentations that you have the opportunity to hear, we will try to do this in an interactive way. So Ruben is here, and we are not the same league. However, I'm a bit taller, but then again, he's a passionate Spaniard, so he will try to fight me. I'll leave you the red one. I'll take the blue one. So today we are going to talk about actually local development on our machines. For some time, I've been trying to find out what's the best way to develop locally and to actually find the best way to use it on old machines, for instance. My machine is from 2011, so it's a bit old. It is like 7 years from now, soon to be 8 years. And there are a lot of challenges how such a machine can cope with the difficulties of various stack developments. I gave some previous talks about the using Docker in development process. I personally tried various different approaches and always had some troubles with that. So in the end, I landed on this stack, and these things that I'm going to talk about today is the result of some research I've done, some work I've done, and understanding some major parts of how it should work and operate. So I'm going to try to share that with you. If at any time you have some questions or something that you would like to ask, or feel free to interrupt me, and I will also try to interrupt your pre-lunch rest by asking questions. Unfortunately, there will be no prize, it's just lunch. So let's see about your own working environment. So what's the working environment you're actually using in? Please, let's raise the hands. Don't be lazy. Just raise the hands so we can estimate how are we all doing. It's not about me. It's about us. Yes, sometimes we use some tools that we're used to, and we usually claim we're too busy to switch the tools. It is very hard to switch the tools, we all know that. And now I will ask you one of my favorite questions, and that is, what is your platform of choice? So who's using actually Linux for his daily work? Wow, I'm really happy to hear that. So most of these things will not apply to you. How many of you are using actually Mac? It seems like some hands are 2 times raised, but that's okay. That's okay. And please, just be gentle to the who uses this operating system. Okay, that's okay. They are not developers. They're not developers. They're designers. That's fine. So we saw that mostly people are using Linux, and that is the good thing because Linux doesn't have that layer between the actual Docker usage and the operating system that we need. Let's move on. We can use different setups for our web server, database, PHP, and other services. So, how many of you are using some kind of Acquia desktop and other user-friendly icon graphic clicky things? Wow. But anyway, there could be some starters. How many of you are maybe using XAMPP or some stack like that because it's easier? Wow. How many of you, and now please be honest, how many of you are using actually local environment where you set up the server on your machine and it's local? About a half. So the other half is either not developers or are actually using Docker. Wow. Now that's the good response. So we are actually on a good track. That means that we will not have the obligation to talk too much about the terms. About the Drupal, yeah, we all know the Drupal. We don't have to talk much about that. We've seen headless Drupal with colleagues. I was talking about a legless Drupal. That's the thing, but that's the other question. So we are all actually using Drupal that is based on a web server, on PHP, on database, and that's what we actually need. So we can use PHP Storm, and with that PHP Storm, we can use PHP, and we can fake it into MySQL, and but that's not a viable solution for development. So what about Docker? As far as half of you are using Docker, actually there is only one thing that we should know with Docker. Docker is isolation process. Why are we using Docker? Because we need Docker to isolate one environment in order to use one set of rules, versions like Ruben. That's applied to you. You're not using Docker. Okay. Why do you hate it? That's the thing. Okay, I agree. And that is why we move actually further. Composer. So the real question is not the composer, but the real question is how many of you are not developing in Drupal 8? So everyone is developing in Drupal 8. That's the very, very good thing. Oh, I'm not developing in Drupal 8. Yeah, I got the project recently, I'm sorry. Anyway, the composer thing. We usually think we know what the composer is, what the Drupal is, what the whatever is, but the thing is that the composer as a dependency manager actually tries to set up different layout from what are we used to be using in Drupal. So if someone remembers Drupal 7, we were actually using it the way that we had everything in one folder, like we have doc.root or public HTML or web or whatever, and we just threw everything inside. Does anyone know, besides some there, does anyone know why would we use composer-based Drupal 8 development? What does that bring to the table? Right, okay. Then next. Composer actually is planned to be the way to upgrade your Drupal site further. That's the one thing. But the more important thing is how many of you are aware how the actual Symfony application should be put in the folder. We actually separate what is visible publicly on the web from the vendors and libraries and everything else. We do that for two things. First thing is obvious, that's the separation of the code. And the second thing is maybe less obvious, because you have to keep in mind that libraries which are not accessible from the outside are less risk. For instance, let's take some component which which keeps the version file inside the project, and that's text file. You can read text file without any problem. So you can find what's the faulty component version inside that text file, and you can use it as a vector attack on the side of the Drupal, even if Drupal is not aware that such bug or security issue is at the moment known or visible. So the reason why we should use Composer is that we separate all the vendors outside from the Drupal, and then we are left inside the Drupal folder only with the things that belongs to Drupal. And that brings us to the, this is the front-end thing that attacked us, and we will return to it much later. So, Docker. If you want to commit murder on your laptop, your system, whatever, you can do two things. First thing, throw it in the river. It could float. If you hit the boat, then you're lucky. But the surface of the boats is not comparable to the surface of the ocean. And the next thing is you can install Docker. Why is Ruben right when he says that Docker is beep? Docker is beep because it uses too much memory. So once upon a time, when the Docker was young and the skies were blue and Trump was not president at the moment, Docker was actually very moderate. You know, when I first installed Docker for Mac, I was fascinated. Wow, it's only 300 megabytes. I mean, it's not actually a wow, because the same amount of memory was used by virtual machines. But then again, I thought, okay, virtual machine does occupy the resources. Virtual machine does, actually, virtual machine, they run in a layer 0. So in a CPU, in a low-level kernel programming, you have level 0. Level 0 is not intended for user space. So you don't run anything on level 0. Your level is level 3. And when you run things like VMware, Parallels, VirtualBox, they actually, they're using layer 0 because before 2 years, operating system didn't have the layer which enables hypervisor to take over the things. And then came the Docker, and we liked that, and that was fine. Docker for Mac, Docker for Windows. It was like panacea. You know what the panacea is? That's the cure for everything. And it was advertised as a cure for everything. It will do everything, and it did everything, including the killing of my and probably yours computer. So that was the really hard problem. Oh yeah, the Composer has definitely the ugliest side. We can maybe run a contest, but they will win by far. I haven't seen something as ugly as it is. I was trying to find some way to do it better, and then I stumbled upon something that is actually called Docksal. I read a lot about that. Some things I may like, some things I may like not so, and being what I am, I read a lot, and there is a colleague of mine who knows how much I devote time and resources, and other colleague by him, actually he got me fired for my research and investigations. So I said, okay, I'm fired, I can do whatever I want, I don't care what you think. So I took the time to investigate dev, to investigate Amazi things, whatever it is called. How it's called, the third thing? Lando, sure. And there is also one more thing, and the Drupal VM as other thing. So there are many things on the market. Actually, they're not on the market, they're all free, so you're free to use whatever you want. And actually, let's get back to the colleague. Vladimir Zdravkovic, there, please. First of all, he had some ridiculously hard presentation in a niche. There were some people dead, raised with the ambulance, and it was so technical that actually few of his closest friends could survive with the end of the presentation. I knew everything. I did. However, Vladimir Zdravkovic and I first clashed when I wanted to use my tool. I was on a Mac. I used Sublime Text, and I said, your PHP whatever, it's ugly. First of all, it's ugly. Then it's ugly, and it's in Java written, and everything that I hate about and he said, fine, okay, use whatever you want. And I said, okay, I will configure my Sublime to be as good as yours PHP storm. And I did that. His friend and our boss at the time had the patience, and it took 1 month trying to match feature by feature, and I failed. And I mean, I didn't fail. Actually, I succeeded. But the result was a monster. And I said, okay, I'm not right. You're right, Vladimir. You win. And I removed the Sublime and continued to use PHP Storm. So it's the same thing with the Docksal. You know, I didn't want to use Docksal, but I researched, and came to the conclusion that yeah, actually it's the tool of my choice, and I'm basing my few. What's the thing with the Gulp? We said that we will keep the Gulp for later. Now we will do the live demo. There is one guy who is quite a tall guy, like Ruben and myself, and this is his sentence I learned from him. Never do a live demo. Unfortunately, that was at the very same day that I actually had tomorrow a session where I intended to do a live demo. Of course, internet at that time didn't work, and all my concept for doing a live demo just miserably failed. We expected that. So in the rest, we have some task runners, Gulp, things. Gulp, I mean, who cares about the Gulp? Let's do the thing. So in that thing, I said clear, so you cannot see my Pornhub. I use curl to download the whole Pornhub. Added some more sites, but I will not reveal them. So let's see. We have the following thing. I was wondering why my laptop is complaining while it was actually plugged into the mains, but the mains didn't work and still didn't work. We will see about that. Charging, kind of charging. Okay, not charging. We don't care. So the thing is, I will not try to do the things like Vladimir did. Vladimir did that from a technical side. It was actually a presentation, not a live demo. And I will try to do a live demo on what he actually tried to present. So in order to use Docksal to actually make a project, you will have to install it first. If you're on Linux, you don't have the virtual thing. There are, in the slides, there are, on the Docksal site, which is quite fine. Let us see how fine it is. So on the Docksal site, you have installation process, which is so simple, it couldn't be simpler. So all you have to do is click, download, install, and that's it. Okay, there's a catch. you have to be fluent in the terminal, in the command line. But I assume, since you're all here, that should not be a problem. So once the virtual machine is started, I'm not sure if mine is, we can check it with this is the Docksal main command. Okay. I will try to fill up while things are working. So when we take a look at the fin, does it mean it's working? Probably it is. Okay, we will find it in the next move. So we want to start the project. It is as simple, so we are starting Drupal 8 project. It is as simple as fin. I could type a project, but I'm lazy. I will type just P, create. Of course, you can use the full line for those who like to automate things. You can choose the type of the project, you can choose the name of the project, you can choose not to be interactive, and it will just do its thing. I will use now the plain and simple interactive way. So the thing is, after you install the Docksal itself, you have to operate from the command line. For that one Windows user, I will explain him later, so I will not bug you. We have the terminal, and we can use it, we can rely on it. So on Mac and Linux, it's all the same. We can say fin p create, and name of our project, let it be Palić. What would you like to install? If we choose number 1, it's Drupal 8 as it is, plain and simple. I will choose 2. You can see that you can also use fin to make a Symfony skeleton, Magento, Laravel, the WCMS we don't mention, Grav, that is interesting, Hugo, it's kind of a Go-based, and Gatsby.js, which is gaining a lot of popularity these days. And even you can, I didn't see that before, static HTML site, really. So all your bases are covered. I chose 2. It's Drupal 8 Composer version, and I'm presented what will happen. So it will install it in sites Palić, it will be the version Drupal 8 Composer version, and after everything is done for you, it will be available here. Take a note at this URL. Now the magic will happen. While magic is happening, you have the freedom to ask questions, and I will take the freedom to answer the questions you didn't ask. Let's see. Oh, I didn't kill it. Okay, that's fine. We'll repeat it, and then we'll say, I really don't have the time now to think about that project that I killed, not in a good way. Okay, so everything is the same. We are now in the process that script took our wishes, and it is now fulfilling it. When we take a look at this, it first took the images that are needed for the project. I had already images, so that part is skipped. You have to have some patience. It's not too much, actually. So it pulled all the images that are needed for the Docker. It created a virtual environment for our project. That's all done in the background. Here we see main containers operating. That's the database. This is the command line interface. That is actually our PHP thing. And here is the Nginx web server that is doing the work. This here is actually Composer thing. So Composer is pulling the components using the... So fin is actually using Composer to pull all the components. All the components will end up in vendor folder. Now It's updating dependencies. It will create autoloader for us and all other things. And we will end up, while it's working, we will end up with a project that has its name, Pannonia in this case. It has few folders. One of the folder will be web, I suppose. One of the folders will be vendor. One of the folders will be Drush. I suppose all of you are using Drush, right? Is there anyone who is not using Drush and is not a designer? I know that. So, don't you tell me that you hate Drush too? Okay. One problem less. So you see, there are a lot of things doing. Now they're actually being put from cache. Everything is ready and done for us. It's truly a magic from our perspective. I mean, if you at any time try to do that manually, to pull the things, to take care of dependencies, to put on, you know, there is not rarely a case that you actually are not sure about the how to organize things. And I will try to give you my advice on that. It doesn't mean that it's smart enough, but I think that it is. So we are now in Drupal core. You can see that they're using 8.5.8. Probably they didn't update the composer version of the Drupal still, but maybe it will update it later. Anyway, we will end up with those folders. So web, where the Drupal is, vendor, well, all the composer components are there, Drush, where the Drush is, and then I would suggest you to use two more folders. One folder should be assets. That is the things that client give you. And I would advise you not to change the things that client gives you. So if client gives you a file that is 38 megabytes for a little picture of a user, that's okay. Just put it there. Why am I not suggesting you to scale it down because you don't need it that big? Because you will use later that assets. If you're in any kind of a quarrel with the client, you can look back and said, okay, see, you gave me a picture like that. It was not like when I change it. The second thing is, I often have seen that users are, not users, sorry, front-end developers are putting the whole front-end developer stack into the Drupal. Not rarely, node modules finish up in live site. And that is a huge thing. You don't want that to happen. So you have two things. First thing is to think about it in advance and put it in a git ignore and don't use it when blah, blah, blah. And the second better thing is to take the front-end development out of the theme. Why? Because you don't need it there. Do you need SCSS files? Do you need Gulp files on a production site in the theme? Do you expect that for really DevOps will look for your ridiculous Gulp file and package JSON and node modules and test all that and remove it? No, they will not. So on the front-end people or developers is responsibility to remove everything that is actually not needed for the operational Drupal theme. So please do that. Please don't put your process into the theme. Remove it from the theme and from the folder that reads front end. You produce actual CSS, JavaScript, optimized images and put them into the theme where they should be. So it took some time, that's for sure. But that time, I'm not sure it's 2 minutes. It seemed a bit more. Anyway, it's ultimately not important at all because you don't do it 5 times in a minute. You just do it once for a project and that's it. After all the magic is done, we will just look here. So not only that it put environment, used what we needed for our project. It also installed, so we don't have to click database, connection, profile, this, that, or whatever. No, it's done for you. Your username is admin, your password is here. If you want to access the site, Pannonia Docksal. Look at this Docksal. Why is it important? Because you don't have to hack your host's file, or you don't have to use localhost port 3000 or 4000 or 8000, whatever. It's just there, done for you. It's integrated in the system, and you don't care about it. So let's type that here. Okay, we are hoping that the curse of the Martin will not attack me. And remember, he's a Viking, so he could attack you at any time. Here it is. So the Docksal is the work of the fine people at Friends from Work. They contributed it wholly to the community, and I really don't see an easier way to start up your project. Now, this is not the magic for some people that are actually using it, but I'm going to do one more thing, and that is MC Hammer. Where are we? We are in Pannonia. So here it is. Here are the files, and we see the Git. That Git will be the problem for you. We see drush, scripts, vendor, web. So once you go through all of this, you should actually remove this Git, because that's the source of the project of the template. So we don't need it. We will set up our own. The next thing is Docksal is where environment we need lies. So I used the automatic process that took me all along and done all the things for me. In case you wanted a Drupal 7, it could give you Drupal 7. In case you wish to make some changes, changes are here. For instance, you don't want PHP 7, you want PHP 5.6. I will not go into details. There is documentation, and there are just too many options for us to have any kind of a glimpse at it. So in the end, let's see, what do we have here? Not here, but what do we have here? So these are the 4 vendors, in the 4 folders that we're actually using: drush, scripts, vendor, web. Inside that web is just the Drupal. Oops. So here is our familiar Drupal, and you see vendors are missing from here. It is a new one. The previous template didn't actually separate. Vendors were still inside. Now they're moved out. And this is just the plain, simple Drupal site as it is. Actually, we are about 1,500, so we will have to stop at this moment. As they, in MC, they say, stop, hammer time. I mean, it's lunchtime, actually. But I will just do 2 things. I see that he is nervous, but I'm stronger than him. Maybe. Let's believe it is. I will do just 2 things for you, all front-end developers. So the thing is, here I would make a directory that is called front-end. In the front-end, I would make something like npm init yes. That's the one thing you need. It's ridiculously easy, actually, to set up the thing. So here we need that, because the next thing we need is to install npm I. We need gulp and gulp sass. For instance, that's just the beginning. I will put the slides online, so you will be able to look at the modules inside the Gulp that gives you few tasks that you can go over. And while we're waiting for it to be installed, I will multitask with my slides. Okay, I have old machine. I'm an old man. So here it is how we add gulp. So this is happening in the background. You just say npm install gulp and it's added to the file. Actually, in your project, you only need to remember package.json and gulp.json, gulp file, and that's it. Gulp file.js. That's all you need. The difference between gulp and grunt or other things are that the gulp has code over configuration. So all your configuration is actually in code. You're calling various modules, for instance, like this browser sync here. And you usually, look at this tiny curly bracket, you usually supply parameters inside an object that is key value pairs. It's the same thing for the, here are main gulp methods. Here is how we start the gulp file. Here is the anatomy of the gulp task. So you give task a name, anonymous function, and do something, whatever we want it to do. Default task is the task. If you don't mention the task, it starts automatically. And here you will see how easy it is to use gulp to produce something, whatever it is. For instance, we need to copy files. Whoopsie. If we need to copy files, it's just like this. You get the source, you get the destination. That's it. It couldn't be easier. For instance, I use that to copy fonts that I include using also. So font awesome, I don't download it. I don't include it in my repository. I just use it in package.json. Package.json pulls it from the net, the latest version. I don't care which one it is. And it is built for me. That's the essence of using a Git. For instance, if you need to compile Sass, here is my file that I actually use in my production. So I supply arguments. I make development, CSS, minimized, and then gzip. Why I use gzip? I want to know how big it is in the when it's downloading over the internet. Sure, I use Uglify. You just name all the libraries you need, including your own, and Gulp uglifies them. One important thing, you cannot uglify ES6, Jesus Christ. You cannot uglify ES6, you have to use a different module to do that. You can watch for a change, and the best thing is browser sync, which you can use to reload your page on multiple devices at the same time. Everything will be available